Hi, I'm Larry Dignan, and we're here with Craig Froelich. He is the Chief Information Security Officer at Bank of America, and we're going to talk about neurodiversity and how it can work in your workplace. Hi, Craig. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. It's great to be here.
So let's start from the top. How did you begin a neurodiversity inclusion program, and what was kind of the rationale behind it?
Yeah, so I think for one, neurodiverse people and neurodivergent people have been in our organization for a long time. But it is, neurodiversity is one of those hidden diversity initiatives where there are lots of people who are neurodiverse. They may be on the autism spectrum. They may have ADHD. They may have dyslexia. And for a long time, they may not necessarily have felt comfortable in being able to talk about that openly because of an associated stigma. So, when we first started thinking about neurodiversity and the importance of neurodiversity in order to be able to help solve some of cybersecurity's hardest problems, it was first about making sure we had an open and honest, courageous conversation in the organization. From there, it was amazing all of the people that would talk about how they wanted to be able to help. And then it was about finding partners in the community, people who knew a lot more about this than I did, to be able to help us understand where to start and what to do.
And how is this workforce deployed within your organization? Like, what problems do they work on?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think the important thing to understand is it's not a program. It is part of our hiring strategy. And so, people who are neurodivergent, they're either a part of our team already or that we're bringing into the organization. They go through the same hiring practices. They go through the same things that anybody who is not neurodivergent would end up going through. Um, Once they're in the organization, and specific to cybersecurity, one of the great things that people who are neurodiverse can provide is an amazing ability to be able to think about like pattern recognition as an example. So in cybersecurity, that's roles like cryptography, it's malware reverse engineering, it's hunt team, where focus and intention and looking for details is really important. And people who are neurodiverse have a great aptitude for being able to do that when given all of the right conditions and the right support.
So there's a clear business benefit for it. Um, what are some of the disadvantages or challenges with it?
Well, I think that there is absolutely a business benefit. In cybersecurity, there is, depending upon who you talk to, something on the order of about 3.5 million jobs that will be unfilled this year. And so it's an imperative for us as an industry to be able to make sure that we're bringing people to the table and that those people have to be able to come from all walks of life. If you're thinking about how to be able to solve a hard problem like defending an organization like Bank of America from different threats, you have to anticipate what those threat actors are going to do. And people who think differently are going to be able to help you do that. So the advantages are clear. I don't know that I would necessarily say that there are challenges, but I do think that when you have neurodivergent people in your team, you have to think through how do you make sure that they have the right environmental conditions. So something as simple as providing them with noise canceling headphones or putting them in a place in the building when we're still in buildings to be able to make sure that they're not in a high traffic area or that they have the right lighting. None of these are really expensive, and frankly, none of them are really hard. But it's amazing what you can do when you open up and ask them what it takes for them to be able to focus at what they come up with and what they will help to deliver.
So how has, like you mentioned, the workplace setting, how has that been challenged by the COVID pandemic and with everybody working remote? How do you, whether it's environmental or just connecting with your employees, is there any unique challenges to that?
Well, actually, I think if anything, it's actually an advantage. So if you think about how we've all had to work from home with all of the extra distractions with kids running around or dogs barking in the background, this is the world that neurodivergent people have been living with forever. And so when they went from the office to working at home, it was actually very easy for them. In fact, probably even easier for them than it was for folks like myself. So, their ability to stay focused and focused on the outcomes and the details has been a real benefit for us through what we've been dealing with as this national, human tragedy or global tragedy related to the pandemic.
So you mentioned pattern recognition and things like that. So how does the human part of that mesh with the machine learning and your anomaly detection systems and things like that? How do you mix and match those?
Well, I think let's start with the premise that machine learning isn't really as much about machines, and AI is not as much about AI as it is about people who are starting those processes. And so, it all begins with a person at the end of the day. And both the input of an AI model or the input of an ML model starts with a person, and the output has to be looked at by a person. And one of the great things about AI and ML is the fact that you're talking about an ability to process information at what seems to be superhuman scale. But people who are neurodiverse, they are more superhuman at being able to process that information than I am. And so matching them together with either the pre-model or the post-model has been very successful.
Okay, so you're basically a workflow in terms of the models and the folks that look at them and look for patterns.
Yeah, that's right. And let me give you some specific examples. So I mentioned cryptography or malware reverse engineering, Hunt Team. If you take Hunt Team as an example, you're talking about, lots and lots of data. You're looking at logs, you're looking at different anomalies, and the models will help to be able to surface things. But any good security team at a reasonably sized organization is going to be most likely inundated with different alerts. They're going to have a lot of information that the models will end up spitting out, but you still need to be able to process. People who are neurodivergent have an ability to be able to pick through all of that information at a more efficient rate and in a better way to give you that type of information that needs to be risen to the surface so that you can action it faster.
Okay. So in terms of building, a security team, I guess what's the structure look like? And, when you're putting a team together, like, I mean, I've talked to companies that have AI teams and, you sort of have your engineer, you have your data person, you have your computer science person, then you'll toss in a liberal arts person in there too, just for, putting things in English, so to speak. How do you construct a cybersecurity team? And do you look at, like, okay, so I need a neurodiverse person here, I need, like, how do you construct the team? Like, say it's a team of five, what's your, I guess, how do you construct it basically?
It's a great question, and I think we're still learning. So, this is a journey for us, as it is, I think, for most companies. What I would tell you today is that, one, you shouldn't think of neurodiversity as a bolt-on to your hiring strategies and the way you design your organizations. It needs to be part and parcel of everything that you do. So, there's certainly certain jobs that neurodivergent people are maybe better at. Like, for example, a lot of neurodiverse people may not necessarily feel comfortable in being able to face off to a business to be able to architect a security solution, because that requires human to human communication. But while that may not necessarily be the right place, you take AI as an example. Making sure that they're paired with people who understand how to be able to interact with people who are neurodiverse. So, whether it's the manager or the people on the team, making sure that they have the right training to say, what are the types of questions that we should be asking, and how should those questions be framed so that somebody who's on the team that may need extra support, like somebody who's neurodivergent, has the ability to be able to do that. What's been really interesting is that, just by making sure that we are being more expressive, more direct, more clear, more straightforward in our language, not just in the way that we manage the teams, but also in the way that we hire our job specifications. It's not only made us better in dealing with people who are neurodivergent, but also it's made us better overall. It's actually been a benefit for the entire organization, because anybody who is interested in taking up cybersecurity as a career now has a simpler, more easy to understand, more approachable job description than they did before.
So it sounds like your company's been at this for a while. How long has it been? And, how did you come around to just integrating it with your hiring practices and create training programs? Like, how long did it take for you to hit your stride, so to speak?
Yeah, Bank of America has had a long tradition of working with people who are neurodivergent. We go back 25 or 30 years, but specifically to cybersecurity, it's been relatively recent. It's been the last few years. And I think you know, adding in an explicit, you know, welcome sign for people who are neurodivergent to the organization didn't happen overnight. It was something that we started having lots of conversations internally, thinking about, how should we do this? How do we make sure that this isn't a bolt-on program, but this is part of our hiring practices, that people can have a career and a long career at that inside the organization. So it was something that, has been around for, like, as I said, a long time within the company, but specific to cyber and into technology, more just like the last few years.
So you were able to adopt best practices from the broader bank?
We were, but I would say that beyond the things that we learned from places already inside the company, we had a great network of people we could reach out to. So, for example, there's a community organization that we partner with, Neurodiversity in the Workplace, and they've been a really good partner at being able to help us, look at our existing practices, look at our not only our hiring practices, but also the way we work, to be able to make sure that we are really optimized inside a cybersecurity team to be able to work with people who are neurodivergent.
So if another organization wanted to, go down this avenue, what would you recommend? Like, what are some of the basic starter points to think about?
I think there's probably three things. The first is start. This is an untapped market for the most part, and starting is really the first part. Two, when you go to start, make sure you bring some partners with you. You don't have to learn by yourself. You can learn as you go, like we are, but you can bring partners along, like the one I mentioned earlier, Neurodiversity in the Workplace, and they can give you a jump start into it. And the third is, don't think of this as a bolt-on. Don't think of this as a program. Think of this as an entire way of you being able to work. And when you think of it as your hiring practices need to evolve, the way that you manage needs to evolve, it doesn't just benefit you in terms of bringing new people that are neurodivergent to the table, but it actually helps the entire organization.
What was the interaction with the HR department? And in terms of, where is this part of the broader inclusion program, or is it, or did they happen simultaneously? I guess, how's it viewed?
Well, as a company, we've been deeply committed to diversity and inclusiveness for a long time. If you look at, for example, our board of directors, 47% of the board is diverse. We are. This is something that we deeply believe in around diversity and inclusiveness. But what I would say is, one, HR was absolutely at the table when we started this journey. They were a partner from the very beginning. And two, this is designed to be complementary to all of the other diversity programs that we run. So whether it be, military, LGBTQ, or other types of programs that specifically are designed to be able to bring people into the organization, the goal fundamentally at the end of the day is to make sure that when you have that hard problem, like defending an organization that has the brand and the importance of Bank of America, to make sure that you have the best and the brightest minds that can look at that problem from all different angles, so that you don't have an impact. You just need as many bright minds as you possibly can, and that's really the goal.
All right. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Any final points you want to make?
I would say, maybe as a final statement, while this may seem daunting in the beginning, remember that as having a call to action, making sure that you have a place to start. And remember, you don't have to necessarily do this alone. There are lots of people like the community organizations, Neurodiversity in the Workplace, that have been extremely helpful for us and helped us understand how we can do this in a way that's great and also really provides a lot of value in a short amount of time.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.